That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The champ is here, and put some respect on his motherfucking name. That's right. We are back for another installment of Knockouts and Three Counts. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. We're glad to have you. We're going to be talking about a lot of things tonight. We're going to be talking about our trip down to Texas for Pele Pro Wrestling and all the craziness that went down there. We're going to be talking about Bloodsport 4 and our boy Nolan Edward going to war with Cal Jack. We're going to be talking about UFC 258 and the man who is demanding that respect with his performance, Mr. Kamaru Usman, getting that big win over Gilbert Burns. We're going to talk a little bit about Kelvin Gastelum. We're going to talk about who should be next for Mr. Usman and all that. And then last but not least, we have to get to NXT Takeover and talk about all the craziness that went down there. Did we see a new champion between Finn Balor and Pete Dunne? You know, Finn Balor was able to hold on to the belt, but man, Adam Cole shocking the world, shocking the system, if you will. Make sure if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the great content, and stay tuned because you never know what you're going to see from your boys here at Knockouts and Three Counts. And next Tuesday, live 9 p.m. on Facebook, we are going to be joined by Gino Medina of Major League Wrestling. So, like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the great action. Peace. What up, everybody? This is Kyle, and you are back watching, listening, consuming Knockouts and Three Counts. It's another Tuesday. I survived the snowmageddon and made it out of Texas and made it back to Michigan. They wanted me to stay there, or I might have been stuck in Utah like our good buddy Kyle Hessler from Pele Pro Wrestling. Hey, man, I'm just glad to have made it out of Texas. Corey, how the hell you doing in this snowmageddon BS that we're in right now?
Well, I don't mind using a vacation day to hang at home with these kids. So honestly, I don't mind it, not a damn bit. I got an excuse to be able to sit at home and not have to go install some doors out in the freezing cold. Sounds like a good time. I feel for all my friends down there in Texas, though, man. I feel for you guys.
Dude, so let's talk about that a little bit first. So, dude, it was a little crazy, right? So, like, they're literally the day before I left. So I went into Texas on Friday. Thursday, they had a 100-car pileup. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, 100-car pileup. And I'm looking, and there's not even any snow on the ground. Like, maybe, like, I would say at most we're talking, like, an inch or a dusting or, like, something along those lines. Like, not anything like what we experienced today.
Right.
Okay. And then so we got the show on Friday, right? So we're getting in there for the the event that we were there to work. We were there for Pele Pro Wrestling, which you can watch the replay of it as past guests of last week. Both the young gun Chandler Hopkins and Mr. Isaiah Bronner were doing their thing on Fight TV and the Title Match Network. You can check them out there and see what we were seeing. But yeah, man, it was a little crazy because, like I said, Isaiah was coming from the Detroit area too, and he didn't get there until, man, probably 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Were you guys on the same flight back?
No, he left before we did. Like, he left before the show was over.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, like, he left before the show was over. And then, like, the same thing with the promoter and them, because, like, Sam and them, which we'll get into that in a minute, but, like, Sam was in a bloody-ass brawl, which, if you haven't gotten to check it out yet, check the link out in the top right corner and check out that vlog from that show. But, Corey, you saw some of the clips. Man, yeah. Angie left with some of Sam's blood all over her damn boot. Yeah, man, it was insane. It was a good time, good show by the boys at Pele Pro. But yeah, dude, it was it got a little wild. I saw a drinking contest. I saw Mike Bennett got things pretty hype. It was cool to kick it with him. And Yeah, dude, all in all, it was a good time, but they had to go right to Utah to go work a show the next day, and Kyle's still stuck in Utah.
Utah's a northern state, so I'm sure they're kind of more acquitted for the or equipped, should I say, for the snow. That seems to be the big issue down in Texas. Their infrastructure and shit. They don't have the snow plows. They don't have the salt reserves. They don't have all that shit. So it's, let alone the power going out. It's just making everything crazy down there.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, though, like I said, it was a great time down there. It was good to get to kick it with Devin. And then on Saturday, man, obviously with the cold and all that shit, I mean, there wasn't a whole ton we could do, but we managed to get out and go watch UFC 258. But before we get to UFC 258, there was some other things that went down on Saturday as well. Our past guest of the show, Mr. Nolan Edward, was doing his thing. Edward, for those of you at Bloodsport, they added an S to my man's name. And, apparently he's from California, which this is news to me. But yeah, he went to war with NCAA Division I wrestler and Cal Jack. He did pretty good for himself, but man, did he leave an impression. And I don't mean just an impression on the fans at home. He might have left an impression on that building, which you're going to see that they're running the same thing from Bloodsport. The next week is going to be from the same building. But, man, a lot of backlash because they couldn't even get my man's name right. Hot damn.
I follow my man Nolan on Twitter, and this isn't the first instance I've seen of this. So
I feel like that's something he's going to have to fight like his whole career.
Unfortunately, more often than not, like with those type of last names where it's almost more common with the S than it is without, it's, you just kind of get lumped into the people with the S.
See, but here's the thing, though. You would think on a show like Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, and this is not to talk any trash about it because I'm a big fan of Bloodsport. As any of you guys that have been watching us for a while know, we just had the winner of the last women's and female Bloodsport, Ms. Lindsay Snow, on the show right before she won Bloodsport. So I'm not by any means saying I'm not a fan of the product, but it was just funny because you're just like, damn. And then what was even funnier is after the show, you look and his opponent's like, damn, they messed up his stuff too. And I'm like, damn, it's just all.
Honestly, so I have one of those names that's commonly mispronounced. My last name's commonly mispronounced, and it's no big deal, honestly. I just at this point, I just kind of let it roll off my shoulders. So honestly, somebody adding an S or something like that to the end of it isn't that big of a deal. Them not even getting the hometown stuff right and stuff like that, hailing from and stuff like that, I would be a little more annoyed by that, honestly.
And then the other guy, they had his age messed up and stuff. They said he was 38 and he's only 32.
It's just a typo, okay?
Hey, like I said, man, it was a great show. Don't mistake what I'm saying. The product we saw was great. But it was funny because it was a taped thing, so it was just like, damn it.
Yeah.
All right, so obviously, as I said, that wasn't the only thing that went down Saturday. We also had UFC 258. All in all, I would say was a lot more exciting of a fight card than I expected it to be. And definitely not the outcome that necessarily I expected that we were going to get.
Okay.
Corey, what were your thoughts on UFC 258?
All right, to clarify, because I feel like this is just a common misconception now with all these UFC cards. Anytime it's not stacked, in normal in normal theory where the card's not overwhelming with star talent and stuff like that, that just means there's more people that they're packing on there that are genuinely exciting fights that you just haven't learned their name yet. That's all that really boils down to. And I think we've seen a lot of that this last Saturday. I was really impressed with quite a few fighters. I'm going to pull it up here in just a second, but honestly, my thoughts on the night as a whole is I'm surprised in a sense that Usman was able to kind of get off in the way that he was, I thought it was going to be a little more of a grinding war. And I'm honestly surprised that we've seen Usman in another stand-up war. I thought that was something we would only kind of see in his fight with Covington. I didn't think that was going to be something he really implemented as his style going forward. And he looked really impressive, man. I mean, I see everybody and their brother on every show and podcast that's talked about it and broke it down, talk about how impressive his jab was. But I mean, you really can't understate it. It really was. It was stiff, quick, no tell, no flare of the elbow, nothing like that. And it was just in his face. And you could really see when it would land, it would really disgruntle Burns. I mean, it would really push him back. Anytime that he would go to push momentum, Usman would just pop it forward and he implemented it perfect. He really did. He implemented it perfectly.
So here's the thing, man. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he had the camp change to Trevor Whitman. Trevor Whitman, dude, it's no secret. There's a reason why guys like Justin Gaethje and the crop of killers that Rose Namajunas, the crop of killers he's got coming out of there, man, their striking is so crisp. There's a reason for that. And I think that was really evident. I think that jab that we saw from Kamaru Usman was really the difference maker. I mean, there's not really any way to really understate that, like you said. I mean, but the thing is, the way that fight started, man, like the way that fight started, dude, I thought Gilbert Burns was about to come out and shock the world and just blow his shit out and get a quick finish. And I'm like, oh man, that's not at all how I thought that was going to go that quick. And then for the momentum to just shift from one side to the other within a round like that. And for Usman, somebody who, like, I picked Usman going into the fight, but I thought he would win by like decision or a decision of some kind. Right. So for him to come out and not only win, but to finish Burns and just blast him out like that, man, that is an impressive performance. And then for him to come on and call out George Masvidal, put some respect on his fucking name, bro. I don't know what else to say right now. I mean, my man pretty much shut anyone up when it came to UFC 258. Any of you guys that are in the live feed, please feel free to weigh in.
Anybody who is watching, I really honestly want to get your guys' thoughts on what do you think of the matchup between seeing the rerun with him and Masvidal? Because honestly, I think that fight plays out the same way 10 times out of 10. Maybe 95 out of 100. You might get some slight variation, maybe. But even that, I don't see it necessarily going towards Masvidal. I just don't. Masvidal's got incredible skills. He does. Do not get me wrong. But Usman's so fundamentally sound that I don't see somebody like Masvidal being the kryptonite towards that. I feel like you have to have somebody who's also very fundamentally sound and on top of their game as well, and able to implement all facets of MMA. And I think that's why we've seen like such a bang out war with him and Covington. And I feel like Dana has said in a bunch of his press stuff that he's done after the fact, that was just such a war of a fight. And to be able to go back and look at it now for what it was, and to see what he was able to do to Burns, and able to, like you said, weather the adversity, deal with the fact that his chin got tested, the fact that he dealt with his first knockdown in his UFC career, if I'm not mistaken.
And it was a bad knockdown.
Bad.
Like,
I mean,
crunched,
face first. You know, he caught himself with his hands, but he fell face first. You know, it Burns. You could tell he really did have that pop too, especially early, man. He had that power. And he was able to hit him a couple more times too. I know me and you had kind of referenced it talking before the show, but that head kick that landed, man, he blocked that with about his upper lip / nose area.
Yeah. Trying to say that kick didn't hit. I mean, he might have blocked some of it, but man, the way his neck just clunk, dude, it was something on that one.
leading up into the fight, one quick point I do want to make is I feel like a lot of people were still sleeping on Usman, and I wonder if that's going to be the case going forward. I wonder if he's going to finally start to get that respect that he's earned to this point. But I just feel like he really is an incredible champ. He's a lot better than his performance in that Masvidal fight might lead some people to think. So I just really can't wait to see where he goes from here. Who do they match him up with? If it is Masvidal.
Oh, I think they're definitely going to run that Masvidal fight.
Is it the tough? Is he now taking Colby Covington's spot that was supposed to be them on the Ultimate Fighter? Is it now Usman versus Masvidal?
I think it's got to be Masvidal, dude. It has to be, especially after that win. I feel like Usman gets to call his shot on that one.
I agree, but I just wish it would have been a better placed call out. I get that the champ,
but who? Okay, say it's not Usman. Say it's not Masvidal, then who do you want to see him fight?
My honest number one matchup, and this is me trying my best to take bias out of it, but I am a huge fan of him. Saying that up front, Wonderboy Thompson. He's on.
Wonderboy Thompson deserves a title shot, dude. But you got to think of this too. Like Wonderboy Thompson's been working his way up towards the number one contender spot, but they've never really had that one fight that solidified it yet. I feel like he's next in line to fight. Mm-hmm. I feel like he would be a next in line for it. But I feel like if you're talking about what should happen in the immediate, I feel like Usman gets to call his shot after that.
I agree with you, and that's why I would just wish the call would have been placed somewhere else.
You may not like the call, but I mean, if you want to talk about something that's going...
I like the fact that he made a call out. Let me get that clear. I like the fact that he made a call out, made it clear. I like the fact that the champ knows that he's the one that's going to be getting pay-per-view points on this pay-per-view if they do it again. And Masvidal's the one in his division that's going to sell the best. And not only that, he went through the fight with him once. His performance was not top-level Usman. And he wants to go in there and show that that's not who he was or is or was, whatever the case. And I agree with it in a sense, but it's just I really feel like Masvidal should have got one more fight in between. I feel like him going back-to-back from title fight to title fight just kind of takes out of it a lot. It really does. Like, I mean, they're not willing to put this title belt on the Dustin Poirier-Conor rematch that they're talking about because of the fact that Conor's coming off a loss, but then they're willing to give Masvidal another chance at the belt.
There's
coming off a loss.
But I feel like there's a difference, though. I feel like there's a difference because there's a difference between Poirier. If Poirier were to come out and say, I want Conor again right now.
He has, and that's what they're talking about actively booking in early summer.
I feel like it's a little different, though, because Usman has never really been known as a finisher, right? Poirier, it's nothing really new for him to finish somebody, even though we are talking about a Conor McGregor. I feel like Usman's win makes more of a statement only because he's not known for that. Nobody expected him to come out there and whip Gilbert Burns' ass like that in the second round, much less doing it after he'd already taken, such an ass kicking in the first round.
Yeah.
Like Conor never even got to that part. So the fact that he took the ass kicking and then dished out the ass kicking.
I obviously was trying to compare them, but not to use it as a direct comparison like that, because that's not necessarily what I meant by it. I feel like the star power can only take you so far, and if you're coming off a loss, you shouldn't be the one fighting for the belt. You just shouldn't, especially in a division that is got some active contenders in it. It would be one thing if Usman had already beat all the top contenders.
But who else really is? I mean, Wonder Boy, sure, but I mean, like, again, I don't feel like they've solidified him enough as a number one contender yet, though, to give him that next fight.
I mean, Leon Edwards should have fought 6 months ago,
but that's not UFC's fault because he's had how many fights that have been.
I agree.
That can't see. These are the things
you can't.
I get what you're saying. I'm not saying Leon Edwards isn't in that conversation because I would be lying if I said he isn't. But at the same time, though, you got to take facts for facts. He's had what is it? At least twice now that fight's fallen through. So until
he was supposed to fight. He's supposed to fight Tyron. He took like a year and a half off before because he only wanted to fight top guys. And then Tyron, that fight fell through. Then he was supposed to fight Kazmat, and that fight fell through. And so it's just, it's been a rough road for him. And I completely agree that's why I even said I feel like he should have fought a couple months ago if he had a real shot at getting it. But that's why I think Wonder Boy is the right decision. I really honestly do. Or you could even argue that with everything that's being said about Kamaru being the champ that he is, I mean, I'd love to see him. All right, so completely clickbait topic here. Perfect segment for you to clip at the end of this show. What would be better than to see fucking Khabib come back and Usman, and they open up the 165 division with who gets the second belt?
Hell no. Hell no. Hell no, because Usman is way bigger than Khabib.
You think so? Because I think
I think so.
I think out of camp they weigh roughly the same. Size-wise, I agree.
The hell they do. Just on the body structure, look how much bigger
the body structure is different. The body structure is way different.
And then when you add that weight on that frame, that's different, bro. That's different. Like, if anything, I thought you were going to say like him versus Izzy, and I was going to say Izzy's got to get through get through Blachowicz first.
Because Izzy's already doing, honestly, what I would like to, well, that was what I was originally like leaning towards, was him moving up to 85, but realistically that division's it's in a little bit of shambles right now because of the fact that Izzy's moving up. He hasn't necessarily said exactly when he's going to come back down and defend his belt again. So I don't know. I was spitballing some shit there. I want to see
Hayden just confirmed my point. He said, having met Usman in person, I'm telling you, he's a monster compared to Khabib. And that right there is the one reason I don't see them running that fight, because if they do bring Khabib back, they're going to protect him. It's going to be either a fight that Khabib wants or a fight that's going to make money. They're not going to put him in a fight where they think he's about to get fucked up.
But do you think he would get fucked up? If the fight played out, you think he would get fucked up?
I think because of the size difference, I think it would cause a problem.
You don't
especially think now that Usman has developed his striking game.
Yeah, I think that would be the big difference, honestly.
Because if he can stop Khabib from even taking him down long enough for them to strike, dude, his power is going to be much more than Khabib, I feel like.
Agreed.
At least striking power. And that plays a big difference. And again, they don't want to see
just the ability.
Khabib ain't going to put himself in that kind of situation, I feel like. Unless it's against somebody like GSP, I don't see it.
Yeah. Well, either way, to jump into some other fights on the card, because I did have
the other one I want to talk about is Kelvin Gastelum.
Kelvin Gastelum. What about Alexa Grasso, the co-main?
We can talk about Alexa Grasso, but I feel
incredibly impressive out there.
But I feel like Kelvin Gastelum was in much more of a must-win spot.
Absolutely. They were trying to
that he put in, bro.
They were trying to build up
that man look like a rook.
Mm-hmm.
All that talk about how Kelvin Gastelum's on his way out and all this and blah, 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 and all that shit he was saying in the interviews beforehand. Boy, Kelvin Gastelum went and took that kid to school.
And it's funny, too, because Ian Heinisch is the one that's the decorated, like, wrestler and all that, where, you know, Calvin's not. Gastelum is not a decorated wrestler and stuff. He's good. He's a very, very, very good MMA wrestler. Don't get me wrong. Not, I mean, obviously we've seen it this past Saturday, but it's funny how you can see that collegiate wrestling just not translate to the same level inside the cage. I don't know if it's just the difference in strikes, the small gloves adding into it, or the lack of wrestling shoes even.
So here's what I think the big difference is. Good wrestler is a good wrestler, but if a good wrestler doesn't learn MMA wrestling, I think that's where your issue comes, in my opinion. I feel like when a guy doesn't learn how to mix it for MMA, because it's totally a different thing. It really is. It's totally a different thing, man. And if you're in a regular wrestling match, yeah, you're getting beat up just from the wrestling, but you're not getting punched in the face. Yeah, you're not getting kneed on the way in for a takedown and stuff like that. So I feel like those are the big differences. And sometimes I feel like wrestlers don't always do. I mean, it just depends on how they're able to adjust to the damage of MMA. I feel like that's what ultimately does that. But again, like I said, with Kelvin Gastelum's fight, dude, he just owned that fight. Mm-hmm. Like, he beat him up for 3 rounds, man.
So he did, right? And watching it, I felt like it was a 30-27. But that being said, Ian Heinisch hit him with some hard knees when he was shooting those takedowns. He hit him with a couple hard head kicks. He hit him with a couple hard punches. It wasn't.
He went for it.
It wasn't.
Don't get me wrong.
But it was still a 30-27 in my eyes.
There's levels to this shit.
Yep.
Like, and that's what that was a clear example. This is one of those fights where I feel like there's levels to this shit. Like, mm-hmm. You could see the championship pedigree of a Kelvin Gastelum.
Yep.
He's been there before. Where I feel like Ian Heinisch came out, boom, 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 shoots his wad, and then Kelvin just took advantage and then tossed him around because Ian Heinisch had nothing left to fight back.
Yeah. Well, you've seen this in the past in a couple of Ian Heinisch's fights, that he kind of does it kind of exactly what you said. He kind of goes out there, and if he's able to get him out early, he's an absolute monster. If not, the third round kind of comes around, and not always his way. But I was incredibly impressed, really, with the improvement in skills that I seen from Alexa Grasso over the weekend. Her ability to not get mauled by Macy Barber was quite impressive to me. I mean, not that Macy Barber really shot too many takedowns, but she did shoot quite a few times, and any time that she did, Alexa was immediately on that takedown defense and was quite successful with it. I know the UFC was really trying to build up both of these girls, but more so towards Macy Barber. But Alexa Grasso did a great job to steal that spotlight over the weekend, I thought.
Okay, so first off, I agree with you that Grasso really shined. But before I give her her props and give her her flowers, I also have to say Twitter needs to learn their fucking shit once again, because I had a guy that kept coming at us on Twitter saying, because I'm over here talking about how Macy Barber was going for it in the third round. And if you don't watch that third round and see how Macy Barber is like blasting this chick, you're not watching the same fight that I was watching. Because there were a few times in that third round where I'm like, Grasso better put her damn hands up or she's going to knock her head off and knock her out in the third round. And if you think that she didn't have her hurt, again, I feel like we weren't watching the same fight. Now, do I think that Grasso still won the fight? Sure. I have no problem with the decision. All I'm saying is, for anyone to act as though that Macy Barber didn't not only hold her own, she had Alex Grasso in trouble. We weren't watching the same fight.
What I felt like was, once the corner kind of instilled in her, like, hey, you're down. You seriously,
the sense of urgency, and that's what you want to see from a fighter. Well,
and I don't know,
listening.
Was it ring rust coming off of the injury,
or was it?
You know, that's
and I mean, I bet she probably wasn't expecting that pace from Alex Grasso either.
Yep. That's kind of exactly what I think it was the fact that I think the layoff, by the time the ball kind of got rolling, it was midway through the second round when she like really got on her game. And then once the coach was like, hey, you are down, you have to get this finish or you are getting your second straight loss. And once it hit, it opened her eyes and you could really see a change in pace from her. And that's one thing I love fights like this when there's two up and coming contenders like this and you can't necessarily take away. There's no real negatives to give out. I feel like Alexa Grasso did great until she dealt with a little bit of pressure, which is what it is. But Macy Barber, yet again, also looked great once she was able to deal that pressure. And so if she can keep that ball rolling into her next fight, she didn't lose any momentum in my eyes.
Oh, I agree. I mean, she came out like a dog. What up, Nick? I see you in the chat. Like I said, man, stay tuned, man, because we're about to get talking about NXT. I want to hear your thoughts on the craziness that was NXT Takeover Vengeance Day. Again, Corey, you and I were talking about that, before we went on the air. I think they really knocked it out of the park. Like, I kid you not, from match 1 till the end of the night, man, it dead ass. Like, I literally every match was good. And then the way they ended the card, dude, it was insane. But to finish the point on Macy Barber and Alex Grasso, I don't think Macy Barber loses anything. I just thought it was funny how people were trying to make it like Macy Barber just got owned, because I'm like, did you not watch the third round? Like,
no,
dude, it was
incredibly competitive fight, especially in that last round. You seen,
and it was even when Macy Barber was losing in the first 2 rounds, it wasn't like she was just getting the shit beat out of her.
No, not at all. She had a couple good solid takedowns. That's why I was saying I was so impressed with Alexa Grasso, is the fact that she is known as somebody who's been incredibly good with her hands and not maybe as well-rounded everywhere else. And in this fight, I mean, granted, she was fighting somebody who's a little bit younger, but Macy Barber's been doing different forms of martial arts her whole life. So she's well-versed in, MMA. And it was for her to be taken down the way she was a couple different times and reverse position on somebody who appeared to be roughly 5 to 10 pounds bigger than her in the cage on the night. Her reversals were incredibly impressive. Her ability to not get controlled on the ground and fight through it. And I was just very impressed. I can't wait to see who they match her up with next. I feel like she could be a real contender if she keeps improving on the skills that I seen her improve on last Saturday.
I agree completely with you, man. Like I said, I don't think anybody loses any stock in that one. I think that it's a good performance for I definitely think it's a great performance for not only for Miss Grasso, but I mean, again, I don't think Macy Barber really loses out of that one.
So,
go ahead.
What about our boy Julian Marquez calling out Miley Cyrus and then fucking dive bombing himself into the fucking ground, huh?
Oh my God, dude. Like, for those of you who don't know, Julian Marquez took his shot at Miley Cyrus, and first she said, what did she say? If you shave what into your chest? Oh, it was Cuban Missile Crisis?
No. Okay, it was the reverse. All right, so she said just shave a MC.
Oh, that was it. That was, I couldn't remember the first.
Because he, in his post-fight interview, you could just see he had fucking hairs as long as my goddamn fingers hanging out of his chest. And she just said, shave an MC and you can have me for Valentine's Day, essentially. This motherfucker sent her back a challenge saying, no, you gotta do a henna tattoo above your belly button that says
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah. So it's just, it couldn't have been any more of a miss shot. It really
couldn't. And DC roasted his life. He's like, you can tell he's never had a girlfriend.
And what's hilarious is I actually am a fan of Julian Marquez. I've been long awaiting this return of his from injury. And I actually became more of a fan because he actually does a podcast with a adult film star named Kendra Lust. And it's a pretty and it's a pretty entertaining show between the two of them, but it's hilarious to see somebody who does a show and is clearly at least somewhat connected in like the adult industry just completely misfire like that. It's just
Dude, on, it was bad. Like that was
missiles
one of those.
Are supposed
that's
to
like
hit the
insert
target,
foot
friend.
Mouth here.
Missiles are supposed to hit the target, not miss.
Yeah, dude, his shot at Miley Cyrus definitely did not work. Like I said, though, that wasn't the only thing that we had go down in this weekend. Obviously, after I finally was able to make my way back to Michigan, fucking 10 hours later, we had NXT Takeover Vengeance Day. And again, this is one of those shows, Corey, where I honestly would put my stamp on it, where I'd be like, I'm telling you, you know what? One of these days, I'm going to, in the next week or so, I'm going to get you to watch some of it with me, because I'm telling you, literally from match 1 to the end of it, I'm serious. Every match had you fucking on the edge of your seat. There were no matches where I was like, oh, what the fuck? And this is what I talk about a lot when I talk about NXT and AEW versus what you see on the main roster. I mean, literally, from the opening match, you had the women's Dusty Cup Classic, which, for starters, you had Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai on one side, which Raquel Gonzalez, if I'm not mistaken, her father played for the Dallas Cowboys. She's like 6 foot tall, like big chick. Not like, I mean, she's got muscle, obviously, but she still looks very feminine. But the shit that she can do in that ring for being a female, man, I'm telling you, WWE might have like China 2.0 on their hands. I feel like that's a decent comparison to what I would say you could compare Raquel Gonzalez to. And then you've got Dakota Kai with her, who Dakota Kai is kind of like, she's very talented in her own right, but she's like the little sister or the friend that it's like, okay, here's a perfect example. It's the 2021 version of Shawn Michaels and Diesel. You got Diesel, who's like the big heavy, who's like the bodyguard, and then you got Dakota Kai, who's like the smaller, faster, all over the place.
Yep.
And it's a good mesh. And they took on somebody that we got to see a lot of and Evolve and stuff like that here in Livonia, in Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon. Again, great match. I think the right team won. And the cool thing with the women's Dusty Classic match that was really cool is they get a shot. So with the men's tag team division, you got the NXT tag champs, you got the Raw tag champs, and you got SmackDown tag champs. Each brand has their own tag champs. The women's tag team champion, there's only one women's tag team champion, period, throughout all 3 brands. So the winner of the Dusty Classic gets a future tag team championship match. And what's very interesting is the matchup that this creates. Because
so that means if they win that match, then essentially, no matter what, they're getting a call up to the,
not necessarily, because they can be defended on any brand.
Okay.
With there only being one, you could be defending it on any brand. So that could open the door for other people to show up in NXT. Again, something that I'm not complaining about. But like I said, it creates a hell of a matchup, because what that matchup creates is now you've got the big heavy in Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai against Shayna Baszler, ex-MMA fighter Shayna Baszler, and Nia Jax, who is arguably one of the biggest women, is the biggest woman in WWE, but she's got the Samoan background too. So it creates a very interesting matchup. So I like it. Like I said, again, this is one thing I've always talked about in wrestling. I think, and I got the same issue with boxing at times, quite honestly. I think sometimes there's too many championships, and if there's too many championships, sometimes it gets diluted.
It very much especially from an outsider looking in, it makes it a lot harder to follow. I mean, obviously there's, like, I remember when I was asking you, Kyle, a couple months back when I was first kind of getting into the show, role and stuff like that. I was asking you, like, if the names of the belts had changed. I know you had said a couple of them had changed throughout the years and stuff, and that they had added a couple here. And then because of the fact that there's not necessarily different promotions, that's not the right word for it, but different
brands. You have three brands.
Different brands under the same label. Yeah, different brands under the same label, essentially. It can be quite diluted. I mean, I don't think it's,
they had the brands when you were watching too, but
I don't think it's to the same level of boxing, though. I think boxing suffers from a whole different role of it, especially now that I feel like MMA has almost became the more popular option of the two, because people relate the weight classes. Like, I know I do when I hear, the weight classes. I hear lightweight, I think 55. I don't think boxing lightweight, which is what, 20?
147.
28. So it's like, I don't relate the boxing weight classes to it. So it's like, you'll hear light cruiserweight, or, heavy cruiser. They have so many weird names for their weight classes. And then they have like 3 belts in what should just be one division, because they'll do like the slightly lighter, which is like 3 pounds lighter, and then 3 pounds
I
heavier.
agree. There's entirely way too many weight classes and champions in boxing, period.
Yeah.
I've said that. I even said that back when I was fighting. But I will say, as a fighter, there being more weight classes, it does help a little bit, because it helps with being able to have to move up or move down if you need to, or whatever. But to get back to the NXT situation, they really pulled out the stops on this card, man. Because like I said, so you started the match, you started the night, like I said, you had the Dusty Women's Classic. Then you went right into a hell of a match. You could arguably say this might have been the best match of the night, and it was the second match on the card.
Okay.
You had Kushida, who obviously anyone who knows anything about New Japan or anything like that is from New Japan. He's over in NXT. It was him versus, who they call the heart and soul of NXT a lot of times, and Mr. Takeover. You had Johnny Takeover, Johnny Gargano. I mean, dude, what a fucking match. Like, I honestly thought at like 3 different points in this match that Kushida was going to win the title. Because like at one point, he had Johnny Gargano in a full-on, completely extended armbar, and Johnny Gargano's only way to escape it, he's trying to crawl himself across the ring to get to the ropes, and Kushida even rolled with it and rolled outside the ropes with the armbar on, and then once he let go of it, quick switch to the Kimura and got him cranked in an Kimura in the same arm.
Oh, man.
So, like, dude, they were going back and forth, just beating the dog shit out of each other. But it was cool, though, and they kind of left a cliffhanger before the match, because Johnny Gargano has his group, The Way, and that consists of past guests of this show, which you can check out in that link right there, Mr. Austin Theory. Jesus, if I could spit it out. Yeah, you got Austin Theory in there, as well as Indy Hartwell, as well as Johnny's wife, Candice LeRae, is in that group. As they came out to the ring, they go, well, where's Austin at? They haven't told us where Austin was yet. So they went back to go find him. So you had a one-on-one match between Kushida and Gargano. And like I said, man, really just back and forth. I mean, it was a damn good match. Hard-hitting match. I really thought Kushida was going to win it. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one to take the title off of Johnny at some point. But good, hard-hitting match, which, again, like I said, this is the kind of stuff, Corey, that I think if you were to get, back into watching wrestling, I'm telling you, if you watch this show from start to finish, it was legit.
Well, that's like you had said. I mean, not necessarily even just for me, but like you had said, that more often than not nowadays, it's the NXT and stuff like that that's trending on Twitter, trending on Google search, or whatever the case be, over the main WWE even. So it's like you almost see more fan attention on the up and comers, I guess you could say.
The thing is, though, that's the problem. I hate. There we go with the developmental thing again. But that's the thing. Like they brought, and that's another thing. So that brings up a perfect point. This is the problem with the fact that I would argue Vince still looks at NXT as the developmental, in that you got a guy like Eli Drake, or now known as LA Knight, who showed up at NXT, who, if you want, for my money, you want a guy who top 5 on the mic, hands down. In the last 5 years, very hard to find somebody that can talk some shit better than Eli Drake. Like, flat out. Let me talk to you. I'm telling you. Dude has dude can run his mouth, and he can back it up in the ring. But the thing is, you're talking about a guy who's 38. So again, this is where that developmental stigma, I feel like, kind of ends up hurting them. And it's sad because Triple H has got a hell of a brand down there, but you got to remember, at the end of the day, you're working for an audience of one. At any time, Vince can see somebody like a Damian Priest, like we talked about with Stevie Ray and the Bad Bunny thing. You had the Bad Bunny thing, and now Damian Priest is up on Raw. So now one of their biggest stars is now, moved up to the main roster. And it's, and that's the thing. Even though Triple H is ahead of it, at the end of the day, if Vince wants somebody to go to the main roster, you're going to the main roster.
And that's kind of where it's even more so, because you're already, when you're on NXT, you're already kind of under the umbrella of a WWE contract, correct?
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's even more.
It's a WWE brand. I mean, they're on USA every week.
Yeah, why I say that is it's just a little bit different, but essentially you could say the same thing with like your LFAs, your CFFCs, and your shit like that, is because they're affiliated with UFC directly with the fact that they're on Fight Pass. So that anytime the UFC calls to claim one of their champions who they're just starting to get sales on their end from, they're immediately pulled into one of the bigger organizations, whether it be UFC or Bellator.
So I get the comparison, but it's a little different with NXT because they're a legitimate brand on TV.
It is. I see what you're saying, because it's very
and they're
hard,
a WWE company. LFA is not a UFC company.
Yeah.
CFFC is not a UFC company.
Yeah.
That's the same. That would be the same as saying like a local promotion like we got here. WXC is the same as a UFC. They're affiliated, but this is an actual WWE brand.
Well, like you were saying, it's really hard to honestly like get rid of that, not necessarily stigma, because I feel like it was something that they implemented on themselves. Because I remember seeing marketing a couple of years ago when it was starting, and even in the name itself, NXT, it spells next. I mean, right. It's next up, So yeah, it isn't a developmental in the sense of like AAA Farm League or nothing like that, because you're already on a big show on a big platform.
And at this point, they brought a lot of big stars in there, dude.
Yeah, but it's still like, I don't know how to describe.
It's always for Vince McMahon. It's always gonna be second fiddle to Raw and SmackDown. Plain and simple. It always will be.
I don't even feel like second fiddle would be the right word for it, because I don't even think he necessarily puts it as the same entity.
Same level.
Yeah, it's not even the same entity. Like it's a totally different. To him, it is more of like the AAA Farm League, even if it isn't on the outside looking in, if you get what I'm saying.
I get you. So the next match that we had on there, now you had the men's Dusty Rhodes final, which featured past guest of the show and part of MSK, Mr. Zachary Wentz, now known as Nash Carter, and Wes Lee, formerly known as Desmond Xavier, against the grizzled young veterans and Liverpool's number one, Zach Gibson and James Drake. Dude, for my money, this is one of the best. You liked that FTR Young Bucks match. you would have loved this match. Guaranteed it. Guarantee it. That, like, they had me on the edge of my seat from jump. And it was dope because to give you guys a little bit of backstory, anybody that doesn't know, obviously the Rascals were a 3-man group. We got to interview Trey and Zach when they were with Impact, but Zach or Nash Carter now, and Wesley went over to NXT. Trey Miguel stayed in Impact. So they went there as a tag team and they debuted them in the Dusty Classic. So not only are you debuting right away on TV, they're debuting you in the tournament. And to not only go to the tournament, debut in the tournament, they debuted him in the tournament and they won the tournament. So, I mean, that's a hell of a way to put somebody in there. Yeah. I'm glad to see that they're giving them the clout that I feel like they should get. Because as a tag team, and especially with some of the teams that have left NXT to go to the main roster, like, that's a hell of an addition.
Now, quick question for you, Kyle, because you've been entrenched in the wrestling world essentially even longer than the podcast has been going, but we can say since the podcast has been going for sure. You see it in the UFC right now with the move of Michael Chandler into the organization and Michael Chandler getting the push that he is. You see some of the people that were on the roster for years, like I was watching an interview with Beneil Dariush, and he was kind of going down the same road of like, hey, he still needs to earn his stripes under our banner. Even though he's earned his stripes under somebody else's, he still does need to earn it under ours. And it essentially, to boil the question down to you,
do you think that they have to do that when they go to Raw or SmackDown?
Well, do you see that as much in wrestling? Do you see people that have been on?
Definitely.
Do you see people that have been on, say, the roster or whatever the case for 2 years or something, and they see this new hire come in and get all the shine? Is the jealousy levels, I guess you could say, the same in wrestling?
Oh, sure. I think you would have that in anything that there's a competition like that. Mm-hmm. But there definitely is. And you have to understand, like, okay, for a while there was a stigma, and it still does happen to a degree. I mean, there's plenty of guys I can point to where it's happened, but you'll have a guy that WWE will sign because their contract came up with somebody else and they had a lot of buzz, and they'll sign him, and then they get him, and then they give him this big debut, and then nothing really happens.
Yeah.
And then so, like, they end up having this giant roster of badass talent that's just sitting there. And then here's the other thing. You also got to understand, unfortunately, NXT by and large is viewed by your diehard wrestling fans. Mm-hmm. Like, the fans that watch NXT are going to pretty much watch it every week. Raw and SmackDown, now that's a different story because SmackDown is on Fox and Raw is the flagship. So you get a lot of, well, I don't even know if you can call it the flagship. I would say SmackDown is flagship at this point. I don't even think that's an arguable point. But to answer your question, again, you're essentially performing for an audience of one. So even if you're hot in NXT, if creative in Raw and SmackDown, or Vince specifically, doesn't, maybe see it, like Keith Lee, there were some things that he wanted to change about Keith Lee. Everybody loved Keith Lee when he was in NXT, but there's some things that people wanted, that he wanted changed so that he would work the main event style. I think that'll.
How old is Vince at this point?
Oh man, he's in his 70s at this point.
I knew he was getting up there, but is he still as hands-on as he's always been?
He's definitely gave more of it to Triple H, but yeah, he's definitely still.
Yeah, because I remember in the beginning, it was like, I remember hearing stories and stuff that literally every like script was essentially had to be passed by him. Everything that was done needed to be passed by him, and like you said, even character direction and stuff like that.
It's still that way. Don't get it twisted. Yeah. It's still that way. Ultimately, that's his baby until he's done with it. We got 2 more matches to go through on this NXT Takeover card. You had the women's title match, which was between the champ Io Shirai, Toni Storm, and Mercedes Martinez. Now on Twitter, I heard a lot of people bitching saying that they thought this match was a little too short. For me, I had no problem with the length of the match. It was really hard hitting. All 3 women had their spots in the match. I was really glad to see that they finally gave Mercedes Martinez the spot that I feel like she deserved in a lot of ways, because when they first brought her into NXT, she had been in the Mae Young Classic twice, but they hadn't signed her. And then for her to come in here to NXT, at first they had brought her in with Robert Stone, then she went away for a little while, then she's coming back here and she's in the title picture. Dude, she is a force to be reckoned with, and she's a 20-year vet. That's the thing.
Oh, wow.
Again, we're talking about this is what I'm talking about with the NXT and the credibility thing. Those that are not really engrossed enough to know what's going on. I mean, those that watch the Mae Young Classic know what Mercedes Martinez is about. But you had her and Toni Storm and the champ Io Shirai, who's been champ for quite a while now. And in my opinion, you really got Toni Storm already was a star. Mercedes Martinez definitely made it known that anyone that wants a shot at that title is going to have to really go through Mercedes Martinez too. So a great job by them. But the last thing that we definitely need to touch on before we get out of here, the NXT title match. You had Finn Balor versus Pete Dunne. Great fucking match, first of all. Great match. I think the right person won. Finn Balor retained the title, but again, Pete Dunne and Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch were all associated with Pat McAfee. They came out and laid a beat down on Finn Balor after he won, which the Undisputed Era comes out to make the save to help Finn Balor. We'll get to what happened with that in a second. But one thing that really stuck out to me in this match, I really loved all the jiu-jitsu from Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne's a very technical guy. There were a few different triangle and armbar attempts in the match. A lot of leg kicks and knees and things of that in that nature. So I'm always a fan of those kind of things. Finn Balor, again, this is where we talk about experience and things like that. But at the end of the match, like I said, after Finn gets the dub over Pete Dunne, here comes Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, and they're beating the hell out of Finn Balor. Here comes Undisputed Era. They make the save. Well, as they're all standing there, they're about to do the Undisputed Era sign. As they're all standing there in the line, Adam Cole turns, super kicks Kyle O'Reilly, and walks out. Super kicks O'Reilly, super kicks Balor. I think this is a classic case of I'm head honcho, I'm number one, I'm the leader of this bitch. I don't know. Obviously, we're splitting Undisputed Era. I don't know if that means Adam Cole is going right to the main roster. Don't know how that's going to happen. But again, very, very solid show from NXT Takeover Vengeance Day. Make sure that you check us out this Thursday live at 9 o'clock, as we're going to be making our picks for this weekend's UFC, as well as the WWE Elimination Chamber, which is going down on Sunday. And like I said, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button and check out the vlog from this Friday's Pele Pro Wrestling. And again, until next time, and in between time, don't freeze your balls off. We all know it's snowing, and stay safe. Peace.